Hello, everybody. Welcome to Spellbound Studio. My name is Tracy, and this is Folklore Friday. Make sure to become a star in the Spellbound constellation by liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and telling a friend. If you would like to further support the studio, check the links in the description below. Rhiannon enters Welsh mythology already misunderstood and misjudged. She has already been punished for crimes that are not her own, and that detail tells us almost everything we need to know about her power and her persistence. She is not a goddess who announces herself with thunder or conquest. She arrives quietly, riding a white horse that cannot be caught, moving at a measured pace while entire courts exhaust themselves trying to pursue her. This is the first lesson of Rhiannon. Sovereignty does not hurry, and truth does not need to prove itself to those who refuse to see it. Though she is often remembered today as a figure from the Mabinogi rather than explicitly labeled a goddess in surviving medieval texts, Rhiannon bears all the hallmarks of an older, divine presence, one whose myth was reshaped, softened, and constrained by Christian scribes who marked her story centuries after her worship would have flourished. Her name is widely believed to derive from Rhiannon, meaning Great Queen. This places her firmly in the lineage of Celtic sovereignty goddesses whose role was to embody the land itself and to confer legitimacy upon kings not through force, but through rightful union. Rhiannon appears to Pwyll, the Prince of Dyfed, as an otherworldly woman dressed in gold, riding serenely through the landscape. No matter how hard Pwyll's men chase her, she remains just out of reach until she finally turns and gently rebukes him for failing to speak to her directly. This moment matters. Rhiannon is not impressed by pursuit, bravado, or spectacle. She responds to honesty, courage, and respect. She chooses Pwyll, not the other way around, and their union is one of consent and recognition rather than conquest. This places her apart from many mythic female figures who exist merely as prizes or tests. Rhiannon is the chooser, the arbiter, and the queen who grants sovereignty because she wills it. But her story does not remain a romantic fairy tale for long, because myths about powerful women rarely do. After marrying Pwyll, Rhiannon gives birth to a son who disappears shortly after his birth. Through a cruel and familiar twist of patriarchal myth-making, Rhiannon is accused of murdering and devouring her own child, an accusation rooted in nothing but fear and convenience. As punishment, she is forced to sit outside of the gates of the fortress, telling her story to passers-by and offering to carry them on her back like a horse. This image is one of the most devastating and enduring in Celtic mythology. A queen reduced to a public spectacle of shame, her voice stripped of authority, her body repurposed as punishment, and her truth dismissed. Yet, even here, Rhiannon does not break. She does not rage, disappear, or become monstrous. She endures. When her son is finally found alive and returned to her, the truth emerges and her innocence is proven, but the damage has already been done. Rhiannon's suffering is not erased by vindication, and that too is part of her mythic weight. This arc places Rhiannon alongside figures like Persephone, Cassandra, and other women whose narratives center not on moral failure, but on survival within systems that refuse to believe them. She becomes a goddess not only of sovereignty, but of unjust punishment, false accusation, and quiet resilience. The medieval text may not name her as a goddess outright, but folklore does not require formal titles to preserve divine truth. Her associations with horses, birds, and the other world are not ornamental. They are symbolic keys. Horses in Celtic tradition are deeply linked to land, kingship, travel between worlds, and female divinity. Rhiannon's white horse is not merely transportation. It is an extension of her sovereignty and her ability to move between realms without effort. Birds are also sacred to her, especially three magical birds whose song can wake the dead or enchant the living into a deep sleep. These birds place Rhiannon in the space between consciousness and dreaming, between life and death, grief and healing. Over time, as overt goddess worship was suppressed or absorbed into folklore, Rhiannon's divinity diffused into story, song, and symbol. She survives not as a temple figure, but as a presence, and this is why she resonates so strongly in modern pagan practice. She is honored today as a goddess of sovereignty, intuition, endurance, healing from trauma, and reclaiming one's voice after being silenced. She is especially meaningful to those who have experienced public shaming, gaslighting, institutional punishment, or the slow erosion of credibility. She does not promise immediate justice. She offers the strength to endure until the truth comes out, and the grace to remain oneself even while being misrepresented. Offerings to Rhiannon tend to reflect her mythic associations and her temperament. She is not approached with extravagance, but with sincerity. Oats, apples, honey, bread, and milk align with her connection to horses in the land. Music, especially singing or instrumental music, is especially appropriate given her association with enchanted birds and otherworldly sounds. Poetry, prayers, written affirmations left on an altar honor her role as a keeper of voice and story. White candles, silver symbols, and horse imagery are commonly used, and so are feathers and bells. Acts of devotion to Rhiannon often extend beyond physical offerings. She is honored through acts of personal integrity, truth-telling, and boundary setting. Standing up for oneself without cruelty, choosing patience over spectacle, and reclaiming one's narrative are all considered devotional acts in her honor. Gates and thresholds are also associated with Rhiannon, as she is a liminal figure who governs transitions rather than destinations. She presides over the moment when an identity is shed and another has not yet fully formed. This makes her especially relevant to modern seekers navigating grief, reinvention, or the aftermath of injustice. Her color associations are white, silver, and soft gold. She evokes moonlight rather than sunlight, clarity rather than dominance. She is steady, watchful, and unyielding without being aggressive. Rhiannon's presence in pop culture is quieter than a lot of other mythical figures, but it is unmistakable once recognized. Most famously, she appears in name and spirit in the Fleetwood Mac song, Rhiannon, which portrays her as a mystical woman who rules her life like a bird in flight. And this draws directly from her mythic associations with birds and freedom. While Stevie Nicks has spoken about discovering the myth after writing the song, the resonance is telling. Rhiannon's archetype emerges even when her name is encountered intuitively. Beyond music, her influence appears in fantasy literature, role-playing games, and modern retellings of Celtic myth, often reframed as a horse goddess queen of the underworld or guardian of liminal spaces. Characters who embody quiet authority, unjust suffering, and ultimate vindication often echo her narrative even if she is not named directly. In feminist reinterpretations of her myth, Rhiannon has become a symbol of how a woman's power is reframed as guilt, how motherhood becomes a site of accusation rather than reverence, and how survival itself becomes a radical act. She is increasingly discussed in modern pagan and academic circles as a figure who exposes the mechanics of misogyny within mythic storytelling, and she is showing this as a pattern that began long ago. Rhiannon does not escape her punishment through violence or revenge. She survives it through endurance, truth, and time. And that is not a passive endurance, it's an act of restraint, a refusal to let injustice rewrite identity. To honor Rhiannon is to honor the long game. It is to recognize that not all victories are immediate, and that not all truths are believed when first spoken, and that sovereignty often looks like patience rather than dominance. She teaches that dignity can persist even under humiliation, and that power can exist without recognition, and that one's worth is not diminished by being misunderstood. In a world that still punishes those who speak inconvenient truths, Rhiannon remains profoundly relevant. She still rides, she is still unhurried, and she is just beyond the reach of those who try to control her, waiting for those who know when to stop chasing and simply speak. Thank you so much for spending time with me today, everybody. Until next time, stay creative and stay spellbound.